Hi all, welcome to Physio Exam Buddy. This video is on the organization as well as divisions of the cerebellum. You all know that this cerebellum, it is the largest part of the hindbrain and it occupies the posterior cranial fossa and it lies dorsal to the pons as well as the medulla. On each side of the cerebellum, it is connected to the brainstem by three cerebellar peduncles. Superior cerebellar peduncle connect the midbrain with the cerebellum. Middle cerebellar peduncle connects cerebellum with the pons, and the inferior cerebellar peduncle helps to connect the cerebellum with the medulla. The medial portion of the cerebellum, it is known as the vermis, and laterally it have the cerebellar hemispheres. And you can see here that the cerebellar hemispheres are extensively folded as well as fissured. And this cerebellum weighs only 10% of the cerebral cortex and it got a surface area of 75% of the cerebral cortex because of the extensive folding as well as fissuring. That is, although it weighs only 10%, the surface area is around 75% of the cerebral cortex. And this cerebellum, it is divided into three parts by two transverse fissures. First one is a posterolateral fissure here, which separates the medial nodulus portion as well as the lateral flocculus on either side from the rest of the cerebellum. Next is the primary fissure, which divides the remainder into anterior lobe, this one, as well as the posterior lobe. And you can also see that there are certain lesser fissures which divide the vermis so that it contains 10 primary lobules, which is numbered from 1 to 10 from superior to inferior. Next is about the functional division of the cerebellum. It is divided into three functionally. The bottommost portion you can see here, this is the flocculonodular lobe or the vestibulocerebellum, which is also known as archicerebellum. And this blue colored portion, this is the spinocerebellum or the paleocerebellum. And surrounding the spinocerebellum on both sides, we have the cerebrocerebellum or the neocerebellum. Out of this, the flocculonodular lobe or the vestibular cerebellum send fibers to the vestibular nuclei and it is mainly concerned with the balance as well as eye movements. The spinocerebellum send the fibers to both the medial as well as lateral descending tracts and helps in the execution of the motor activity. Whereas the cerebrocerebellum or the neocerebellum, the fibers project into the motor as well as the premotor cortices and helps in the motor planning of the movements. In detail about the functional divisions, first about the vestibulocerebellum or the flocculonodular lobe. This flocculonodular lobe, it is phylogenetically oldest portion. That is why it is also known as archicerebellum. This consists of the middle nodules in the vermis and two flanking flocculus on either side of the nodules. And it is mainly concerned with the balance as well as eye movements. Next portion, this blue shaded area, this is the spinocerebellum, which includes the rest of the vermis as well as some adjacent medial portions of the cerebellar hemispheres. And they receive the proprioceptive input from the body and a copy of the motor plan from the motor cortex. And this portion of the spinocerebellum will then compare the plan of the body with the performance, which helps in the smoothening as well as coordination of the movements. Next is about the vermis which project into the brainstem area. So the fibers that project from the vermis to the brainstem area mainly helps in the control of the axial as well as proximal limb muscles. And this hemispheres also project to the brainstem areas, which control the distal limb muscles. So the central portion of the vermis which project into the brainstem control the axial as well as proximal limb muscles, whereas the hemispheric portion adjacent to the vermis which project into the brainstem areas concerned with the control of the distal limb muscles. Next is about the cerebrocerebellum or the neocerebellum. It includes the lateral portions of the cerebellar hemispheres, these white colored one, and they are considered to be phylogenetically new. That is why it is also known as neocerebellum. and it helps to interact with the motor cortex in the planning as well as programming of the movements. Next is about the topographical representation. In the vermis, the axial portions of our body is represented, whereas the limb and facial regions got their representation in the adjacent cerebellar hemispheres. And the most lateral portion of the cerebellum, there is no representation of the body parts. Next, about the organization of the cerebellar cortex. It contains an outer gray matter as well as an inner white matter. This gray matter is again divided into three layers, that is outer molecular layer, middle Purkinje layer and the third granular layer. And the white matter which include the deep cerebellar nuclei. And there are also 5 types of neurons present in the cerebellum. This Purkinje neuron, it is mainly found in the Purkinje cell layer, that is the middle cell layer of the gray matter. Whereas the granule neuron, granule cell, it is found in the granular cell layer, which is the innermost layer of the gray matter. The basket cell as well as the stellate cells, they are mainly found in the molecular layer, which is outermost layer of the gray matter. And the Golgi cell again in the granular cell layer. And out of these 5 neurons, the red shaded ones, that is the basket neurons, stellate cells as well as the Golgi cells, they are inhibitory neurons because the neurotransmitters secreted by them are the GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. In detail about 3 layers in the gray matter. First, about the outermost layer, that is the molecular layer. The main contents of the molecular layer include mainly the nerve endings as well as the nerve cells. The nerve endings coming from the dendrites of the Purkinje cells. This is the Purkinje cell body and this is the dendrites of the Purkinje cells. So that is one of the content of the molecular layer. Next is the axons of the granule cell. This is the granule cell which is located in the granular cell layer. But you can see here that the axons, it is going into the molecular cell layer. Next is the climbing fiber, which is coming from the inferior olivary nucleus. That also ends in this molecular cell layer. And 2 nerve cells are present in the molecular cell layer. These 2 green ones, that is basket cells as well as the stellate cells. Next, about the Purkinje cell layer. The main content is the Purkinje cell, this red shaded one. And one of the peculiarity of the Purkinje cell layer is that it is only one cell thick. Next is about the innermost layer, that is the granular layer. You can see the cell body of the granule cell is present in this layer and also the Golgi cell. So granule cell as well as the Golgi cell forms the constituent of this granular cell layer, which is the innermost layer of the gray matter. Next, about the white matter content, that is the deep cerebellar nuclei, which is present in the white matter. There are 4 deep cerebellar nuclei. First one is the dentate nucleus, this green color portion. You can see the dentate nucleus in this location of the cerebellum. Second one is the globus as well as the third one is the empoliform. And they together, it is known as the interpositus nuclei. It is represented by blue color and this globus as well as empoliform nuclei are seen in this blue shaded area. And the fourth nuclei, it is the vestigial nuclei, which is represented by the red color, and this is mainly seen in the vermis portion of the white matter. So that is about the organization as well as divisions of the cerebellum. Thank you.